Okay, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. My name is Ain and I am the Program Director for this webinar, Stress Management during Postgraduate Studies. So since we are in MCO for the second time, it is why it's very important for us to do this kind of things to understand we as postgraduate students also understand the pain that and stress that we will face and we are facing right now. So those for you at home, view this while drinking coffee or tea and hope that you can gain something from this, learn something from this, and also manage your stress efficiently. So for that, I think we can, I will pass the baton to the moderator. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. Welcome everyone to the YouTube Live brought to you by Postgraduate Club School of Health Sciences, Universiti Sains Malaysia. So I am Fatin, a PhD student, and I'll be moderating our conversation today about the stress management, basically defining and understanding stress as well as equipping one with the coping mechanism. So we are currently living in the era where what we considered normal today is not really normal at least a year ago. You know, with limited mobility, financial instability, closed borders between states, and also non-conducive learning and working environment, especially among the students, resulted from COVID-19 have affected a large population of Malaysians. So we believe everyone is affected, and as postgraduate students, we are prone to stress due to uncertainties in the timeline of our research, financial burden, and also unprecedented changes in our research situation. So we in Postgraduate Club, we feel responsible to bring you guys, the expert in this field, to at least, convince us that stress is actually manageable if we know how. So in today's webinar event, our panel of experts will unravel the scope of stress, helping us to understand stress, its symptoms, and most importantly, equip us with effective coping strategies. So with me today, our first panel is Associate Professor Dr. Geshina Ayu Matsaat, a criminologist and psychologist by profession, and also a lecturer from School of Health Science, teaching in forensic science. So Dr. Geshina is the pioneer in criminology field in Malaysia and has devoted many years of her research life working to re-educate the society. So being a top scientist, we believe stress is second nature to her, and we are honored to have her today as our panelist to enlighten us about stress. And we also are beyond grateful because we not only have one great mind with us today. Mr. Gan Chun Hong is a renowned practicing clinical psychologist and also a lecturer of clinical psychology and behavioral health program in Fakulti Sains Kesihatan, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. So with his vast experience in dealing with psychotherapy and also rehabilitation clinical psychology, particularly with students, we are hopeful that his excellent insight can shed light to stress management among postgraduate students. Okay, let's kickstart our webinar today. I believe the team can invite Dr. Geshina and also Mr. Gan. I would like to invite, hi everyone. I would like to invite Dr. Geshina to talk about the definition of stress and how one can identify the symptoms of stress. Please start.
Assalamualaikum. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to share with postgraduate students in particular about how you manage stress in studies. Well, it actually begins with the perception of what you view is stressful. But before we go into that, I'd like to share, I'd like to ask you to go to application window, or is it Chrome?
Application window.
Application window, And then I share, is it?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like you to have a piece of paper with you as well as a pen. My PowerPoint is not showing. Can you guys see this PowerPoint?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's good.
Wait a minute. Not yet showing.
Can you see it now?
This one showing your web browser. Have you opened your?
I've already opened the PowerPoint and it says here Studio Restream is sharing a window. So is this the correct window?
No.
Okay, so how do I do that?
Can Doctor pass us the link and then we will share it in the screen.
Okay, I will do that. So while we do this, I'd like to share with everyone who's here that when we deal with stress, it's very much a personal issue. It's highly subjective,
Mm-hmm.
and just because your friend or your colleague seems to be cruising through the postgraduate studies does not necessarily mean that you should view it as stressful. That person is doing very well, you're not doing well, and you naik jadi stress tak menentu, ya. Because stress is highly subjective, as I mentioned again. So how you cope with it, it very much is a subjective issue. Sometimes when you go through life, uh, I'll give you a simple example. Someone whose salary is 15,000 a month, okay? During RCMO, RMO, restricted movement, this individual unfortunately lost a job. So probably he has some savings of maybe 5,000. He can survive for 1 month or 2 months only. The stress is different from a person whose salary has always been 3,000 or 2,500 a month and can still survive during this period of uncertainty. So it's highly subjective. When it comes to studies, we find a similar situation. People who are used to difficulties in life don't see it as much as something stressful that someone who hasn't faced it before. Someone who's done a lot of research, who's used to work life, doing the research, for example, compared to who's always been working and suddenly go into postgraduate studies. Yep. So the experiences of stress would also differ. It's vastly different. Someone who's done undergraduate immediately does masters or PhD for that matter, compared to someone who's left the world of education for 10 years, for 5 years, and they have to jump back. This is a totally different scenario. So the stress that you face would be different. It can be also a matter of the relationship that you have with your supervisor, the lack of knowledge or skills that you have in certain areas of study. For example, you're not sure how to do the literature review, what to put in the research methodologies chapter. So your supervisor may guide you, but supervisors are also humans. So they are not the de facto person you go to for everything. Many supervisors would ask you to try and engage with other lecturers who they know are good in certain areas, whether it's qualitative analysis, quantitative analysis, how to operate the machine, and do that. Okay, meet these people, engage with them, because you have an entire university to seek help from. If it comes to the issue of relationship stress, yeah, between you and your supervisor, there is an option to go to the um, postgraduate office. They all have a unit dealing with these things. So there are mechanisms in place for you to seek ways to resolve the stress that you're facing. Is the slide, can we share it now?
Wait.
Doctor, can you try the share your entire screen?
Okay, share entire screen. I I can't share the screen.
Cannot.
Okay, wait, try this one. Can you see it now?
Wait. Kak Sarah.
Our technical team will try to deal with it as
Uh,
soon as
I've
possible.
shared it. The questions.
Questions.
Okay, we can see now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have, it's red in color, yeah, nampak ya?
Yes, yes, we can see now.
Okay, so let me put it as full screen. So do apologize for the technicalities there just now. This is my first time also using Restream, so tak berapa pandai lagi. I will use both languages. So I'm taking a little bit of Mr. Khan's time. So I like you to take a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, doesn't matter. All you need to do is to have 3 columns. First is the numbers, 1 to 10. 2 columns is also fine. And just give your response, whether it's true or false. So if it's true, just tick true. If it's false to you, just tick false is fine. It is not necessary to write these statements. Okay, in the interest of time, so you can just do 2 columns instead of 3 columns. First column having these numbers 1 to 10. Second column will be your response, true or false. So you can put T for true, F for false. So let's take a few minutes to go through this. It's for your own personal understanding of actually, do you know what stress is all about? Because that's the topic for today. So what is the stress that you feel in postgraduate studies? Okay, so it's in 2 languages. I'll just go through the English statements and just put a response. It's wholly a personal response. There's no wrong or right because this is not an examination. Okay, it's just to see how far do you actually know about stress and whether you are really having stress or not. So question number 1. People who feel stressed or nervous to start with. So to you personally, is this true or false? Question number 2. You always know when you are under stress. Okay, true or false? Question number 3. Prolonged physical exercise will weaken your resistance to stress. For those who prefer in Malay language, you can read the Malay language version. Okay. Question number 4. Stress is always bad for you. True, false. Question number 5. Stress can cause unpleasant problems, but at least it cannot kill you. True or false? Don't take a long time to answer this, yeah? Question number 6. Stress can be controlled with medication. Number 7. Work-related stress can be left at the office and not brought home. So in this situation, the context of postgraduate learning, we can change it. Work-related stress can be left at the lab, at the school, for example, and not brought home. Question number 8. Stress is only in the mind, it is not physical. Okay, next. Stress can be eliminated. And the last, there is nothing you can do about stress without making drastic changes in your lifestyle. So I hope the audience is also answering these. Can we look at and see if the audience are answering?
There is currently 27 audience we have.
Okay. So it would be great if there's a way to get them to respond. How many of the audience answered true? Can they write in the chat?
Yes, they can write in the chat.
Okay, that'd be great. Just you don't have to sometimes you have names there, but just say how many. It's not specifically number 1 I got right, number 2 I got true. No, it's not necessary. Just out of 10, you total every true response that you put in. So it can be 5 out of 10, 2 out of 10. That's completely fine. So I'd like to ask the audience to do that, please. And perhaps Ayn and your team, you can take note of it because I can only see the screen that contains the questions.
Yes, yes.
So I'd like to ask the audience, please, to participate.
Yeah, we have 5. And then
Okay.
someone says 6 out of 10.
Okay. What about the rest?
And then me, myself, 4 out of 10.
Okay.
Who else? Can we have more response from the audience? We have 26 audience currently.
So perhaps they need a bit of time to think through.
What about Ain? How many true? Okay, now we have another 4 out of 10 and then 6. So
So can you please write it down? How many wrote 2 out of 10, 5 out of 10, and whatnot? Let's see how many actually respond.
4, 2.
You should get at least 26 responses. Yeah, this is one way that we can actually identify what we understand about stress. It's
Currently,
your own benefit.
4 and 5.
How many?
Like 4 people answer 4 out of 10 and then another 4 people answer 5 out of 10.
So we have 8 people.
And then 2 answer 6 out of 10 at the
So
moment.
10 people.
Yes.
So the rest?
The rest, can you please? We have 3 out of 10.
Okay, so I please make a note of it. Berapa ramai? Hopefully we can get 20 people to respond to this.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for 9 more responses, please. This is one of the ways, as I mentioned before, for you to identify yourself. Do you actually understand what stress is all about? If you do not understand what stress is, how do you move forward with trying to sort the stress that you face in your life and in your postgraduate studies? I do apologize, Mr. Gan, for taking a bit of the time here.
It's okay.
Do we have enough?
We have 10, is it? 11 response.
Only 11 responses. What about the rest?
What about the rest? There are 30 audience. Maybe they are taking some time. You need to think.
You don't have to think too long about it. This is not a test. There's no right or wrong answer.
How you
It's
feel.
just your personal perception, experiences that you've gone through all this while, and do you actually understand what stress is? Sometimes in counseling, when I do get students, my postgraduate students coming to see me to express that they're facing stress, they don't know things, they need help, I would often start with this. Then they get a better understanding. Oh, I'm not really stressed. Oh, I misunderstand about stress.
Some people doesn't get the question because they came late. Can you see the screen, the question on the screen?
The screen is actually showing the question still.
Yeah. The question.
So we need to talk about it.
Mira J.
Sorry?
Dah. Tutup.
So I repeat the statements here for those who came in a bit late. Number 1, okay, make 2 columns. Just number them going down the rows 1 to 10. The second column is true/false. So for every statement that you agree with, just put T. You don't agree with, put F, or just put a tick. Okay. So question number 1, because it comes in 2 versions, English and Malay. So I'll just read the English version. People who feel stressed or nervous to start with. True or false? Number 2, you always know when you are under stress. Number 3, prolonged physical exercise will weaken your resistance to stress. True, false? Number 4, stress is always bad for you. Number 5, stress can cause unpleasant problems, but at least it cannot kill you. Number 6, stress can be controlled with medication. Okay, I just remind the audience there is no correct or wrong answer. It's your personal perception regarding what you know about stress. Number 7, work-related stress can be left at the office, at the school, at the lab, and not brought home. Number 8, stress is only in the mind It is not physical. Moving on to number 9, stress can be eliminated. And the last, there is nothing you can do about stress without making drastic changes in your lifestyle. So that's all 10.
Okay. We have 20 answers now, Doctor.
Alhamdulillah, okay, that's good.
Okay.
So, how many answered 4 just now? It's only 4 people?
Okay, first one, 2 people answered 2 out of 10.
Okay, for true.
For true, yes.
Okay.
And then 1 people answered 3 out of 10.
Okay,
And then 10 people answer 4 out of 10.
okay,
And then another 3 people answer 5 out of 10.
okay,
2 people answer 6.
okay.
1 people answer 7.
Uh-huh.
And then another 1 people answered 9 out of 10.
All right. Okay. So it looks like more than half of the audience actually know what stress is about. Congratulations. That's good. It's excellent. Okay, so I'll go through one by one, just briefly. Yeah. Number 1, people who feel stressed or nervous to start with. The correct answer is false.
Oh.
All these statements, the correct answer is false. So you should actually get the correct score is 0 out of 10.
Okay.
Because nervous can be a physiological state for the individual, or it can be also part of the personality of a person. They feel stress just as perhaps the same as everyone else. People who are looking at these individuals who have to live with people who are nervous, probably more stressful. Okay.
Okay.
Number 2, you always know when you're under stress, the answer is false. Sometimes you're not aware.
Mhm.
Okay. The body will tell you when you're feeling stressed and you might ignore it. This comes in with, for example, tension headaches, stiff shoulders. For women, sometimes it is the case of where we get acne around the face, around the face. Okay. Or sometimes it can be also at the hips. Okay. You get some pimples. Don't worry about it. After 2-3 days, when you're less stressed, it will go away by itself. Number 3, prolonged physical exercise will weaken your resistance to stress. The answer is also false. The more physical exercise you do, your resistance to stress improves. Number 4, stress is always bad for you. This is also false. You must have stress in your life. You have eustress, good stress. Okay, stress motivates you to move.
Yes.
Right in the beginning, okay, when you wake up in the morning, you will experience stress. That stress is you need to go to the toilet. Okay, imagine if you're waking up in the morning and you have no stress feeling to go to the toilet. Okay, don't be proudful. Don't be happy that you don't need to go and do business number 2. Okay, you don't need to, business number 2. In other words, okay, in after 3 days, the stomach intestines can keep up to 5 kilograms of toxins.
Mhm.
That's not good. So you should go to the toilet for business number 2 at least once a day. Stress sometimes is good for you. You need stress to motivate you to work. Okay, if you do not have that stress, then you might most likely just procrastinate all the time and not get anything done. Number 5, stress can cause unpleasant problems, but at least it cannot kill you. Stress kills. Okay? It manifests itself in times like, for example, stroke, heart attack. Yeah? Stress can be controlled with medication. No, that is the absolutely last thing you want to do.
Mhm.
Because what happens when you take medication is that it controls sometimes in your body, perhaps the hormone. It works very differently. Okay, it depends on what type of medication, so-called medication you take. You can become addicted to it. You can see it as a result, as a simple result to get away from your problems, but the problems will still be there
Mhm.
even when the medication wears off. So the way to approach it is to handle and manage stress rather than avoid the situation. Work-related stress can be left at the office and not brought home. No. Okay, that's false. You cannot, cabut, take off your head at the office, and then you change another head, and then you go home. Whatever problems or stress that you face at the work, you will bring it home. Whatever problems you have at home, you will bring it to the office. Okay, because it's the same head, you are the same person. It depends on how you manage it, whether you can shelf it, whether you can put it aside. So work at the office, stays at the office, work at home, stays at home, for example. But with the COVID-19 situation, restricted movement, your work and home is in the same building, probably in the same room. So it cannot be left outside the door. Okay? It goes with you. It just depends on how you manage it. And number 8, stress is all in the mind, it's not physical. This is absolutely false. It can be manifested physically, the way that you talk, the way that you walk, the way that you engage with people. Okay, nada, suara turun naik, your speech patterns, how you write, for example. Stress motivates because if someone is, let's say a woman at home is very stressful, she can really clean up the house. Okay? But if this person is not stressful and there's no way to let go of anger or frustration, then the house is not going to be clean. So sometimes people use it as a positive way to act out physically for the better. In this case, cleaning up the entire house. Okay? And you can put so much energy in cleaning up the house that the floors all shine because of the effort placed into it. Okay? Number 9, stress can be eliminated. No, the only way you want to eliminate stress is if you are dead. That's all you mean. Then you don't feel any stress. Okay? Every day you will experience stress. It's just a matter of whether you acknowledge it. You know that you're facing stress. You can manage it. You think it's going to become overwhelming to you or not. Number 10, there's nothing you can do about stress without making drastic changes in your lifestyle. No, it's false. You don't have to do a lot of drastic changes. It can be a simple matter of time management. Okay, it can be a simple matter of getting help from people. For men, sometimes they feel that it will be emasculating if they don't find help when they're feeling stressed. Actually, it's more masculine for men. You know your limits and you're seeking help to reduce your stress levels. That's better. Because for men, if they keep the stress inside them for so long and no one knows that they're feeling stressed, this can later just explode. And then it doesn't harm them. They get a brain aneurysm and that's it, they die. Okay? Because it eats you from the inside. So you don't have to make drastic changes. It can be as simple as changing your diet. Okay, instead of taking 5 cups of coffee a day, you reduce it to once, because true, coffee can help you to motivate you, but having too much of it is not a good thing. You might become agitated, or you can become hyper alert, but does this actually make you think better? No, it doesn't. Okay, so that's from me for the time being. I will give it back to Ayn because I think I've used up my time.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gesh. I hope by now students can identify and have better understanding about stress based on the checklist of questions that Dr. Geshina shared with us. So actually, some of the students could not distinguish stress from anxiety and also depression. Can Mr. Gan briefly enlighten us about the differences between stress, anxiety, and depression? And also from your experience, do you see students actually able to realize them if they have the symptoms? Please, Mr. Gan. Sorry, Mr. Gan, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, I'm mute.
Okay.
Sorry, I was mute myself. I was muting myself just now. Okay, thank you, Fatin, for the question. Anxiety, depression, and stress. This is quite like the common confusion that we have. Of course, well, I'm a clinical psychologist. Of course, we clinically need to define it quite clearly, you know, when we see clients, you know, whether they are having stress, anxiety, or depression. Because the manifestation of these three, well, let's put it as a condition, is actually different. Well, stress, as what you have understood from what Dr. Geshina has shared, you know, the 10 questions that I think you have gotten the very good idea. Well, stress in general, you can have good stress and bad stress. If we want to like how to call it, look further into the concept of stress. Bad stress, we call it distress. You feel so distressed now. I think most of us are so distressed now. You know, those who are thinking of going back for Chinese New Year, now you're gonna go back. I think you're getting more and more stressful when the New Year season is coming soon. Am I right? So you can feel the symptoms in you. But there are also some stress, which is say is a good stress. We call it U stress, okay? U-S-R-E-S-S, U stress, which, like what Doctor said just now, we need some stress actually in our life in order to motivate us. So stress is not fully like, that we can avoid, and we cannot avoid it because without stress, you can't imagine a life without stress. But it's a matter of how you handle the stress and whether if the stress is prolonged and disturb your functioning, that will be an issue. That is where the issue comes in when the stress, affecting our daily functioning, which will cause us in we cannot perform. For example, that what you are doing daily, that will lead to the issue either anxiety or depression, or can give you both. You know, anxiety and depression can occur together as well. So anxiety is more to the worries that you have, the fear. Okay, stress, of course, will cause, we call it fight and flight reaction. If you go and Google about the stress, you will learn about this. The process, the body reaction towards stress. You can see the initial reaction to stress is fight and flight. Fight is when you want to fight the stress and you try to get away from stress, because stress is not something comfortable to us. Am I right? I think most of us are being stressed now. You know how you feel now. Maybe you can share in the chat room. How are you feeling? Maybe you cannot sleep. You feel you get angry easily. Am I right? Or you cannot concentrate. All this feeling doesn't make you to feel good. That's why you would like to get away from it. You fight for it. Okay. So when this happens, then you got all your symptoms and so on. These symptoms, if possible, should be resolved timely. Okay, you shouldn't let it to prolong too long. Okay, flight, that means sometimes we can overcome the stress and then you achieve something. That's why we say stress is not something totally bad. When you fight and then we become like exhausted because of the effort you put in. You know, you try very hard to do this and do that to fight the stress, and your body to the symptoms where you cannot sleep and so on. Sometimes you can to handle the stress in a constructive manner. You come up with something very creative. The stress make you feel the adrenaline rush. Then you can produce a very good assignment, for example, at the end. Then you feel so happy about that. There is something constructive, but not all the time is you will go to the constructive manner. So when the stress is prolonged for a long period of time, that's why you start to see many symptoms in our body, in our emotion, in our behavior, and so on. So you will end up with all this we call the issues, if not disorder. Okay, it could be anxiety. Anxiety is more on the fear. Okay. It's more on the fear. You fear of something. You fear of you cannot graduate from the course. Am I right? Some of you might feel that. You might not be able to pay your your study fees if the COVID-19 situation, the lockdown is prolonged. You know, you got this fear, and if too serious to the extent that come to the clinical level. Of course, there will be like the list of diagnoses that we have. That is an anxiety disorder. for example, well, there are many different types of anxiety disorder. Okay, some of us might become a bit overly obsessed or with certain ideas and certain behavior. You want to wash your hand, you keep on like feeling like keep on checking things and things like that. Maybe call it OCD. Okay, so this is more on that the anxiety, or your fear is overwhelming. It's getting overwhelmed that you cannot handle that, and it disturb you, and then you become fear of everything, which is not relevant. Initially, you might just fear of, for example, fear that you cannot finish your assignment. Get this fear or this anxiety get exaggerated, you become like we call it GAD, general anxiety disorder. You just fear of anything. Even you fear of go out, phobia comes in. Okay, phobia going out. I think some of us might have that. Am I right? During this pandemic situation, you fear of going out. Even you know very well you have taken the necessary precautions in protecting yourself. The place is relatively safe, but you overly respond to it. Okay, so it could be become something clinically a concern to us. Okay, this anxiety. Depression, on the other hand, it's not that much about the fear. It's mood, emotion, which make you feel a bit down. You feel blue. You don't feel like motivated. I'm using general terms, layman terms. You don't feel like want to do things. You might be like having this issue of sleeping too much, whole day sleeping, you don't feel like you have enough sleep. Even after 10 hours or 12 hours sleeping, then you still feel that you're tired and things like that. It's more on the mood and emotional state where you feel demotivated. There's early stage. But if getting serious, depression is a way linked to this suicidal ideation, which we need to be careful with. When you feel life is meaningless, for example, I got no meaning to continue what I'm doing now, and then you feel helpless, for example, you cannot be helped. Many of the students, I think, feel helpless now. You cannot go to continue your study, trapped in your place. Sometimes a relationship with your housemate may not be good. You just feel that you got no way to escape from the situation. So this sense of helplessness can be very dangerous and can cause a suicidal ideation in the individual that we need to be aware of. Okay, so not much of fear you can see here when you talk about depression. You don't fear of things that much. You don't care anymore when you talk about depression. Just depressed. Some people even get numb. There's no, when you are anxious, you still got something there. Just you feel. You're feeling of fear, then you want to overcome the fear, and either in a constructive manner or in a with some form of not so healthy behavior. For example, you wash your hand and do things phobia and so on. Okay, when you come to depressed, no, basically you're numb. Okay, emotionally you don't feel anything, or you feel low, blue, and then at the end you might feel nothing. Okay, so there's a difference between depression, anxiety, and stress. Okay, stress, you can still see something positive there. It gives you some tips and click you. There's something wrong there. When you feel that your body is bodily, you got body reaction, you feel something pain here, headache, and so on. So it should be a sign that you should be. These are all the signs that you should be aware of, and you should take something to help yourself. If you don't think you can help yourself, better get help from your friends, or get some professional help from the institution or from the surroundings. Okay. So the second question is about what the students
The student actually, from your experience, do
Yeah.
students actually able to realize if they have this?
Well, you say yes and no. Some students are quite alert about their own condition. I also feel stressed, Sometimes when I feel stressed, I know something wrong. For example, if I get angry, get irritated easily when student doesn't submit the assignment on time, and I'm rushing for marks and so on. But sometimes I even don't realize it, Sometimes because I thought maybe I thought that, well, it shouldn't be, what I'm doing is right, the student should be scolded. But when people told me, then, well, Mr. Gan, it seems like you are getting a bit like irritated recently, sometimes we may not be aware about that. So it very much depends on the individual and the level of stress as well. Okay, as mentioned just now by Dr. Geshina, also personality, whether we are more to, like, we call it anxious prone kind of personality. Some people inclined to, as being anxious. So it can be very sensitive towards any triggering factors or stressor in their life. So it can be overreacting sometimes. So they are good and bad lah. So sometimes you get, how to say, overreacting and then triggered by stress easily, But some people can be quite not so much sensitive towards their bodily response and their bodily symptoms. So they might not be aware that much about the stress symptoms that they are having. Okay, and also depends on the situation. Some situation we might not be familiar with, so we might not have any prior experience to check our experience before. I think COVID-19 is something very new to us. We might be in the stress situation, but we might not aware about that because we cannot compare, being locked down for such long period of time, So we think we are doing quite well, but we will know, we might not be doing that well, So sometimes it's very important for us to like talk to other people and check what is our condition, whether we behave a bit different from the usual because sometimes we might not see ourselves that clearly. We think we can, but sometimes we don't over confident about ourselves. So talk to other people and then, well, double check and balance. Okay. Sometimes if you talk about symptoms, then be careful. For example, some symptoms that you don't used to have. For example, you don't sleep. You sleep longer than before. Or you don't sleep. Okay, you cannot sleep. For example, it can be too extreme. Appetite, eating. You don't feel like want to contact your friends. You get irritated easily. So check. Your behavioral symptoms, emotional symptoms. Cognitive symptoms as well. Cognitive symptoms, since all of you are in postgrad studies, I think cognitive symptoms meaning that can you focus, for example? Are you getting more forgetful, for example? That can be cognitive as well to identify the symptoms of stress that in us. So yeah, there's my answer in time being. Does it answer your question?
Yes, very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Gan.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Thank you. Yeah.
from what I understand, basically, if we able to manage our stress timely, it can help us to prevent from further progress into the disorder like anxiety, depression, phobia, and so on. And I also believe that as friends, we have to take a good care of our friends in postgraduate study. For example, if we see our friend behave differently, not as her usual self, probably something as simple as "Are you okay?" can help the person in need. So
the peer support is very important.
yes. We actually have finished the first round where we want to understand stress and its symptoms. So we are going to the second round of our talk today where we will learn how to deal with stress. So once again, Dr. Yassina, what are the stress coping mechanisms and how can one actually view stress as positive drive towards personal growth? Please welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Fatin. I'd just like to add to what Mr. Gan was saying, which leads to the coping. See, the word stress itself, okay, it comes from the Latin word of stringere, meaning to draw tight. So when you talk about stress, it's a feeling of tightness. It's not necessarily at your neck. Okay, it can be in your chest, your head, because you feel overwhelmed. It can be internal cause, it can be external cause that drives you to do something. Again, it can be the flight, fight, or two other responses. Yeah, faint or freeze. So stress can call into these four responses. Yeah, fight, flight, faint, or freeze. When we talk about the coping mechanisms leading from the stress, it depends on how you react. Are you going to react physically, or are you going to act emotionally to the stress? So my study in 2015, if not mistaken, on trauma, yeah? So I've already listed quite about 34 action-based and emotion-based coping that people can make use of. The way that people cope with the stresses that they face is unique. It's subjective to the person. It can be in a positive way or it can be a negative way. For some people, they resort to drugs or alcohol as a means to forget about their problems, as a means to reduce the pressure that they feel because of their problems. But I have to stress it here, by doing that, okay, selecting a specific poison. For example, you're taking drugs or alcohol, yeah, your problem is still there. So when you look into the way that you're going to cope with the stress, you need to first identify, do you actually know where your stress is coming from? Is it a matter of perception? Is it a matter of attitude? Is it just communication, misunderstanding? Is it behaviors, specific behaviors that someone elicits in you and you respond in a negative manner? Okay, you see people laughing and you think that those group of people are actually talking bad about you, whereas it can be absolutely no relation at all. Is it really physical? For example, things that are beyond your control and you stress about it unnecessarily. You can't control it. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. Driving in Kota Baru is very stressful. You get people turning left and right whenever they want
Yes, sir.
without signals. Okay, I've had my personal experience of stopping at a red light and right in front. A car will overtake from the left in emergency lane and go in front of my car to be the first person to move when the light turns green. Okay, so that can be stressful,
Yes.
but you cannot control for those things. So those are physical stresses. Can you actually control? If you cannot control for certain stresses, why worry about it? It's not your problem. So if there's an accident, the person who did that behavior is the one who's going to get it. So why worry? Okay, just let it go. Some things you can control for. So act on those that you can control for. If you can't control it, let it be. Okay. It can be another stress sign is on ill health. Some postgraduate students, they get cancer, unfortunately, positive COVID, unfortunately, and they can still continue with their life. So being ill health, it depends on your resilience. Yeah, going back to personality, you have hardy personality, resilient personality, helpless, hopeless, dependent personality, all sort of personalities. Yep, and each one of them would react differently to the stress, and therefore their coping would be different. It can be physiological, combination of the physical symptoms, the cognitive symptoms that hinder this person from seeing a way out. So one of the most important tangents is how you perceive stress. If you perceive it to be overwhelming, your coping mechanism would react in a way that tries to get you away from that overwhelming state of stress. COVID-19 situation is a perfect example. You hear a lot of information, some of them is fake, some of them is accurate, regarding how to prevent yourself from getting it. So right at the beginning of MCO, we've had people, students who think that they have to take garlic, lots and lots and lots of garlic to increase the immune system. There's no, at that time, there's no scientific evidence. Even now, there's no scientific evidence. What appears to work with some of the trial that we can see is vitamin C. Okay, but it must be following the doctor's dosage. You don't just simply take vitamin C and you think you're going to be immune. No. When we talk about immunity to COVID-19, just because you got it once, you have recovered, This does not mean you are immune. There's a misunderstanding there. So sometimes it's communication, it's the words, it's the information, the flood information you get that actually makes you more stressful. Who should you listen to? Who should you believe? Scientists or keyboard warriors? Because you have to think a lot about this. Wally, you did mention here about washing hands when you're stressed. Got to look into the frequency. Is it going to develop into OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder? Yeah, obsession is cleanliness, and the compulsive behavior, it will be like washing hands. If it's a cycle of 3, 6, 9, 12, those type of frequency, then you're moving towards compulsive behavior. But if it is twice, maybe 4 times, that's completely normal. Okay? So sometimes, yeah, when people get stressed, the way that they cope will reflect on that. It worked before in the past. Therefore, what I think is working, that's the way forward. So I'd like to go back to the action-based and emotion-based coping. This is a study that I did in 2015. Yeah, this did it according to alphabetical order. Number 1 is acting out. It's not coping. So you're giving into the pressure to misbehave. These are the types of people who, when they feel stressful, they will lash out. They will slam the door. They will scream and yell at people. Yeah, it's not coping. Okay, it's very destructive, but that is action-based. As a way for them to release the pressure that they're feeling, they lash out to other people. So they harm other people, they harm things, which is not good. Aim inhibition, whereby you lower your sights to what seems more achievable. So in this way, let's say, for example, you have the Gantt chart in your postgraduate studies. Okay, I'm going to do this and this and this, month 1, month 2, month 3. COVID-19, their entire Gantt chart is gone away. Okay, you can't comply with that Gantt chart anymore. Especially some of my students who are overseas. They're supposed to come to Malaysia, they can't come to Malaysia. If they come to Malaysia, they have to fork out at least 1,000 USD for quarantine in hotels or whatever placements you have. That's per person. So if they come here with a family of 5, well, that's going to be $5,000. Okay, and it's no guarantee that when you come to Malaysia, you can immediately come to Kelantan. Because there's 2 flights. So the situation is going to be even more difficult. So instead of having such a rigid Gantt chart, okay, you have to be reasonable. You have to look back at your Gantt chart and see whether it actually can be done. In a time whereby you cannot meet other people, you can't go to lab, focus your attention towards things that you can actually do. For example, literature review. Learning how to write English properly. Okay? You have academic English. You have non-academic English, which is like business English or journalistic English. Totally different. There's a science and art to writing. It can be the issue at hand is the inability to write as academic as your supervisor wants, as the university wants. So being unable to meet the people, being unable to go to the lab, make use of the time for other things. I have come across students in the lab, they just look at the machine, centrifuge machine, DNA machine, they just look. And they, why is this machine taking so long? So that is self-sabotaging behavior. The machine will run regardless whether you're there or not. Okay? So that is aim inhibition. So you're lowering your sights. You're depending solely on one action to make sure that it goes through when there's so many other things you can do in the meantime. Number 3, altruism, helping others to help oneself. Okay? So it's action-based whereby you say, okay, I have a problem. I can't face it. Let me divert my attention to helping others to achieve what they need to do. And hopefully my problem will solve itself. Okay? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Attack, trying to beat down that which is threatening you. So this is the 4th way of action-based. Instead of trying to resolve how you can solve something, you attack things which you cannot control. It's the universe's fault. It's the COVID-19's fault. I cannot do anything. I'm trapped. But actually, you can do so many things. Okay? For example, I'd like to share my student. He's a final year undergraduate student, forensic science. Yeah. So The difference with him and the other students of his batch is that he's taking one master's level class, okay, which is actually I'm teaching that one. I didn't force him; he just wanted to take it because he's thinking of doing his master's. So it is ethics and legislation in forensic science. It's not an easy topic. Okay. Unlike other courses in the School of Health Sciences, forensic science students have to complete their final year project. It's like a mini thesis, yeah, in one semester. Students from other programs complete their final year project 2 semesters or given 1 year. So he submitted all the ethical documentations. There are 10 documents, including the assessment test and everything. Second week, if I'm not mistaken, of the first semester when it started. Finally, he got the approval from USM Ethics and Custom and the penelitian, yeah, at the end of December. But because of some constraints, he can't actually meet the people. So he was given very limited time to complete his FYP, final year project. He managed to complete just under 200 pages in less than 2 months. Okay, it's already submitted. He gave me the presentation slides yesterday. I've gone through it and now he's ready. So you can see how people cope with the stresses that they face. Same with other students. Same number of courses with the exception of his one extra course. He can't go to the lab. He can't meet people, but he still managed to finish about a 200-page mini thesis. Okay, so it may motivate you. How do you cope with the situation? It can be avoidance. So you mentally or physically avoid something that causes you distress. Emotion-based is separating conflict thoughts into separate compartments in your mind. It works for some people, not necessarily work for everyone. So again, when you try to cope with stress, it's very much a subjective method. It can be displacement, yeah, shifting of intended action to a safer target. So you're very angry at your supervisor, you're so stressed with him or her because he's not actually guiding you properly. You lash it out to someone else, your spouse. If you don't have a spouse, probably the cat, the car. Get so angry, you lash it out. Okay, that is an action base to reduce the stress level. But of course, it will hit back to you lah. Okay, a way to escape emotion base is fantasy. So escaping reality into worlds of possibility. What if I have 50 interviewees after this? So it's a what if way of reducing the stress that you immediately feel. It can help in the short term, but in the long term, it can actually be more harmful because it makes you think of expectations that you know you cannot meet anyways. Can you actually interview 50 people given the time frame you have left? Okay, so it's unrealistic. Sometimes it's self-harm. I've had a PhD student from another university, the stress of life, okay, very beautiful. She did her PhD, completed already, very beautiful. I mean, among the most beautiful women I've ever seen. She was married, but her husband had an affair. And the woman he had an affair with was not even pretty, okay? So she got so stressed about it. Yeah, she says, I've given everything to my husband, I've taken care of him and the family and everything, and he still, had an affair with someone. Now that is something that you cannot control for. But she blamed herself. So she actually took the razor, okay, the men's razor, took it out, and she carved her initials on her shoulder, on her upper arm here. So it became a big, thick scar. So now she cannot wear sleeveless. Okay, so one way to overcome it, to actually see what are the problems she's having, we asked her to do a journal. Okay, she wrote a journal. So when I read the journal, I see drops of blood. Because when she's feeling the pain, she will carve her initial and then it will drop. Okay, on the hand when she's writing and whatnot, so you can see her expression. That's a way of her to letting go of her stress that she feels in her life. But at the same time, she was doing her PhD now. She's a doctor now. Okay, so that is emotion-based and behavior based. But of course, she has that scar for the rest of her life. But she doesn't do it anymore. Self harm is no longer there. But whenever she feels the stress, she can feel it and remind herself she went through that stress in her life and she has overcome it. She's in a better position now. She, in fact, has a better man in her life, for example. So, coping, there's so many ways. There's at least 34 that I've listed down in my paper in 2015 to have a look at that if you want to have more understanding about it. It can also be substitution, replacing one thing with another. So in relationship problems, okay, if you really cannot solve the problems that you have with your supervisors, okay, you can substitute that supervisor with another one. In all universities in the world, particularly in Malaysia, you are allowed to change your supervisor. At least within the first year, depends if it's master's or PhD, you are allowed to change. First of all, of course, there will be the process of making a formal report to the postgrad office, saying what are the things that you cannot resolve, what's the solution like, and if there is enough evidence to do so, you can ask to change. But having said that, your supervisor is not a one-stop center of information, okay? Reflect back to yourself, what exactly were the problems? Probably it's unmet expectations, probably unrealistic expectations that you have in a relationship, because it's not your supervisor's role to do everything for you. Okay, you're a master's student or a PhD student, and it's vital for you to learn the process of research. That's the only way you can become a master anyway. Okay, so it's no longer spoon-fed. For example, the way that you've been doing your undergraduate, you want to just carry it over to postgraduate life? No, it does not work like that way. Okay, so that's all from me for the time being. I'll pass it over back to Fatin.
Thank you, Dr. Gesh, for your sharing about the 34 coping mechanism that we can find in Dr. paper in 2016. So for those who are really want to look at the coping mechanism, I suggest you to have a look at Dr. paper. So okay. What I can conclude is that as a postgraduate student ourselves, the best thing for me right now to cope is first to know what I can control and what I cannot control, and focus on things that I can control, and try to make my Gantt chart more realistic.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Then we move on to Mr. Gan. Mr. Gan, can you share your personal experience in dealing with stress when you were a student studying abroad before? So this may help our international students here, and maybe share the experience of your current international students in Malaysia dealing with stress. Please welcome Mr. Gan.
I see. My experience as an international student was quite long, really. I think more than 20 years ago. Well, I spent quite a long time overseas in Japan. I did my postgraduate studies in Japan for my master's and my doctoral training there. I was there for about 10 to 11 years, I think, before coming back to Malaysia. And I practiced there as a clinical psychologist. And well, it happened that the place that I was practicing, I was practicing in university. So half of my clients are actually, were actually international students, and half of them are the local students, meaning Japanese students. So, of course, if you ask me about the international students' stress, that easily faced by international students, then we have to talk about the cultural issues, the cross-cultural adaptation, as I name it, or we call it as actually, in clinical psychology and psychology, the cross-cultural adaptation is something that we need to be aware of. What are the way of life of every one of us? You might think that, cultural is just like, wearing baju kurung, eating a different fruit in the world and so on. But in psychology, we look at it from broader perspective. It's a way of life of every single individual. In international students context, I would say, while coming here to Malaysia, well, after coming back to Malaysia, I don't work that many like that with international students because my mostly are local students. To share my experience working with international students when I was practicing in Japan, you can see different areas, different what I call that regions. Students from different regions, they might have very unique issue. Okay, unique issue, which will cause them stressful, and there are certain period of time of the year that they feel more stressful compared to before. One example I can share with you, Filipino students, what I can remember now, okay, during that time, well, we call it circadian stress. You know, circadian, when during the sleeping circle, you have, up and down and so on, am I right? You have dreaming stage and REM stage and non-REM stage, things like that, where you dream easily, you don't dream easily. Sama juga, okay, same as well in during a year, where you feel stressful easily compared to other time of the year. Well, Filipino students, you can see they feel stressful, Latin American students as well, during Christmas season, where they need to, stay in that region. Japan is a four-season country. Starting from December, it's getting very cold. And some more during the Christmas season, most of them are Christian, so you can see they get a bit something not wrong, not right there, something wrong there, something not right. Emotionally, they get a bit down, they feel like doesn't feel like want to do things, and they just want to go to party. But when you want to go to party, also in Japan, there will be a major issue because of language. They don't speak English. Okay, basically, they use Japanese. So there are language issue that they face, which in a way add on the stress that they are facing, when they come to all this specific period of time. Me as well, when I was there, I get very depressed, we can call it distressed in January. I really don't like January because if you ask me why, I still can remember, I don't like it. I just said I want to come back to Malaysia, but I cannot. January is very busy season in Japan. Why is it so? Because January is the starting of a year, in Malaysia. Financial year in Malaysia, we start from January. I have a habit, I get very motivated during January. But in Japan, January is the end of their financial year, January to March. So you have a lot of deadlines, So while my body, my biological clock remind me of how to start the new things, I have to prepare, physically and, externally in the realistic that I need to conclude the things, conclude my assignments, all my, works and so on, my language classes, tasks and so on. And the worst thing is January is in the middle of winter. You hardly see any sun. I think Dr. Kesha, will know about dark, the daylight. You can't see daylight that long. Maybe you have only like 8 hours of daylight in a day. It's very distressing. I really don't like it. And Chinese New Year, usually January, February. They'll be even worse this season of time. So I assume now in PPUSM, I heard you got a lot of students from Middle East. Okay, my experience with Middle East students when I was practicing with them in Japan, they get very stressful about their food. Okay, I think the students here might not feeling that much, Luckily, because Malaysia is an Islamic country, you don't have issue with halal food. During my time, the halal food industry is not so developed still yet, at that time. You can see many Middle East students, they get very stressed about that, where they need to get it's very basic. And Japanese just cannot imagine. Why is so difficult? Just get any food, or you want to halal food, or you need to pray. Just pray now. Just recite your prayer. Then it's halal. But we know it's not that simple, am I right? It's a way of how you process the food and so on. So no person can understand them. So when people can understand their situation, they really feel very relieved. Even though we cannot do anything about that, by listening to their difficulties, they will be able to feel listened, feel understood, and from there they try to get the resources that they have to solve their dilemma. This is very important. Middle East students, I got many students from Africa as well. Interesting. Working with them make me really learn a lot from them. You can never imagine some issues they have. Not much of the seasonal issue, I would say. More on the cultural issue. I still remember one case. One student came and said, and he's very stressful because the parents want him to go back. You know, he's come from a small country in Africa. He's very rich, okay, on scholarship, and then he can just spend any money that he wants. And then why you're so stressful? You're you're doing so well academically. She said, yes, I'm doing so well academically. I like Japanese very well. I'm learning Japanese, and then but my parents demand me to go back. Well, you can just talk to your parents. You know, that's what you call cross-cultural issues. We might not understand that culture. So I think that will happen also when we deal with the international students. Then after a few sessions, don't I know the reason why he gets so distressed, or so stressful. Because for me, well, we don't have any financial issue. We are coping so well in your academic study. He say, I just don't want to go back because I don't want to become a king. King, Raja, Raja. So what happened? King? I thought he got something, mental hallucination or things like that. I said, you are going to become a king? Yeah, that's why my mother and my parents demand me to go back. I need to success the throne, the doctor to, the throne as a king. It's just because he was coming from a small tribe, in that country. All the Aborigine, they got their own the traditions there, which are supposed to do this and do that. The rituals, we call it in anthropology. So the parents are demanding him to go back to become the leader of that kampong that village which she's coming from. For them, from their culture, is more important than anything else. Not to get your study, not to get your degree or masters. When time to go back, you have to go back. So it became really stressful. Only then I know the reason behind that. So what I want to say here is we never. So for us as a Malaysian, when we are dealing with our friends, international friends here, especially in PPUSM, I believe a lot of international students here understand their culture is very important. Okay, the cross-cultural understanding. Of course, we as the locals here, we will have our, well, you can call it the routine stress you have. Okay, you might having your romantic issues, issues with your girlfriend, boyfriend, with your family, cannot go back. So stressful with our traffic jam here in Kuala Lumpur, with the air pollution, things like that. That can be quite, we so-called not that much cultural related. But for international students, there might be something additional apart from this so-called routine stress in our life. So with all these things that when we want to give help or to our fellow friends around us, maybe those are the things that we can think of. Maybe in Malaysia, I would say not much of the food issue because we are quite diversified. We got so many food available here. Well, language, we use English quite commonly, quite common, the usage of English. So, well, I'm not sure, maybe later you can share with us, what the international students, especially, what are the stressful events you encounter here. Well, maybe way of life, I would say, the life in Kelantan, for example, maybe quite different. I think even locals will feel that. My students get posted in Terengganu, graduated from KL. She is a KL girl. Well, I think he had difficulty in the beginning, to understand Terengganu dialects, the way how, even Malays, even we say same ethnicity, we call it, doesn't mean that we can get along, when we are posted different, or we are living in different parts of Malaysia. Let's say I'm Chinese, even I live in Penang, I don't say I can't get along with a Penang Chinese way of life because they just have their Hokkien way of life, and so that can be something quite unique that we might need to be aware as well. So this is to share with you. When you talk about the international students, I will link it to cross-cultural issues that we might want to be aware of. It can be something very stressful, we deal with all these cultural issues, not that much about your identity, but the ways of life which is different, and also how you get adapted to the surroundings, the host culture we call it, with your own culture. Okay, and the majority main culture, the host culture, and the minority culture. If you check and observe, you can see though for minorities, like small country, relatively small in number, be careful about that. So pay more attention to them, because less people will understand them. This is very important as well. This you can see also Malaysia students when they go outside there, other countries they tend to have the kampung Malaysia kan. They tend to like gather together in their own club. This would be like, in a way, they gain support. But if you leave that what you call that in the host culture for a long period of time, they might not be good as well. It doesn't solve your stress. You have to face the challenges, the cultural issue, and to see how you want to adjust, how you get adjusted to it. We call it adaptation, whether you get assimilated or you get adapted, and all these issues will come out. Okay. Do I answer your question? Any more question?
Thank you, Mr. Gan,
Yeah.
for sharing your personal experience. So I believe
Yeah.
We have some additional benefits of being a local student, and we should
Yeah.
ready to help our international friends. So for all international friends who are watching this currently, please know that we are ready to help you, and please come to us. We will try our best to make friends with each other and hopefully resolve the stress that comes from cross-cultural differences. Okay, so basically, Alhamdulillah, we have finished with both sessions of our webinar today. We already have hopefully better understanding about stress, the symptoms, the coping mechanism, and also thank you for the experience shared by Dr. Gashina and also Mr. Gan. So let's divert our focus for the question and answer from the audience. We have two questions now. I'll be reading the first question from Nurul Ain. Even getting questions like how many percent of research have you done can be a very stressful question, and this applicable to me too actually. Can I have tips on how to not get triggered by these types of questions? Probably Dr. Kashfa?
All right, okay. Just try to share a bit. Most of my education has been overseas. See, I was born in Australia. I grew up in the USA, and I spent more than 10 years in UK. So there's a lot of differences in all places. Yeah, so all Malaysia, Australia, US, and UK, and parts of Europe, very different. But when it comes to education, yeah, I like the question here about questions how much percent of research. That's pretty much universal. You're going to get it in any university you are. Most of the times, this is actually a projection of your supervisor's fears or need for validation that you are actually progressing.
Yes.
So it's not so much so of how much percent you've done, but showing in a way that they are concerned with the progress that you do. Even if the percentage is 1% difference, it's still a progress. No, percentage is just a number in this case. You have your Gantt chart, humane supervisors, okay, and your friends would be aware of the COVID-19 situation that is beyond your control. So you can talk about things that you can control. I've completed my literature review. I think I have only one more page. So percentage is actually something that is misunderstood and misused in this case. True, for University Science Malaysia, we have to come up with semester-based reports on students' progress. But you shouldn't take it as the literal standard for your movement because everyone works differently. When it comes to PhD study, yeah, I have known of people who finished their PhD in 7 years. In UK, you can do it up to 10 years. So the thing is that you are in control of your research. Now, if well-meaning people ask you how much percentage of work you've done, is it necessary for you to answer back in percentage? Is it not enough to say it's progressing? Okay, because it depends very much on the field that this person comes in. If it's pure science, they like numbers. But some of the work that I do is qualitative research. We don't deal with numbers. Okay? It's good to see I'm progressing.
Yeah.
So if that helps to reduce your stress, communicate in such a way. Because find out actually what is the stress cause from that person, supervisor, friends, family, and the way that you understand it. Is it based on concern? Is it based on miscommunication? Sometimes you get well-meaning relatives. Dah 5 tahun, 5 years you tak finish lagi ke? They don't understand the process of research.
Yeah.
So do not reflect emotionally. Do not react emotionally when it comes to those things. Okay? Because they are not in your shoes. It is progressive. Enough. Okay? Not every supervisor will ask you percentage. It depends on their background. So perhaps Mr. I would like to add into this as well.
Yeah, well,
Well,
yeah, what was the question? I can't see the question on my screen. How to see the question just now? It's about
Okay. Let me read. Even getting question like how many percent of research has been done?
100% of the research. Well, I would say yeah, I agree what Dr. Geshina shared just now, you know. You don't take it so negatively. Well, I don't think the supervisors really like want to, of course you have to assess yourself, you know, whether the supervisor is trying to blame you or not. My supervisor last time was quite straight. But in a way, well, difficult. If you don't want to talk about a supervisor, it's quite because psychologists are quite difficult to understand. You know, in a way, he is straight, but he also give me rooms. You know what I want to do. So I was thankful to that. So even though I feel because I'm a clinical psychologist, so apart from when I in my doctoral study, especially. We got the research and also training, both sides, you know, so it can be quite overwhelming. And also in Japan, during my time, English is not allowed. Okay, we have to study the Japanese, and this is why I start my clinical practices quite late. This is why I like the idea what Dr. Krishna say. What are the factors that you can control and what you cannot control? It's very important to know about that. You cannot just pick up the language in one day. Okay, so if you think you want to be that, you are putting yourself in trouble because it won't be that easy. And the more you are worried, the more you will be stressful. You get stressful, and then the less possible that you will go achieve your goals because you are so anxious every day, you know. So well, I just take my time, and then my supervisor allowed me. Of course, while polishing on my language, I know I cannot see clients. I get a bit upset and disappointed as well, you know, because I practice, you know. Then I adjust my mind. It's what Dr. Agashina shared just now, how you adjust my mindset and to see what you can sacrifice and what you cannot sacrifice, what can be weighted and what cannot be weighted. So we have to see that for those factors that you cannot control. For those factors you can control, I think quite easy. I can control it, arrange it. What we're afraid is when you are so stressful that to the extent that even the factor that you can control will eventually become uncontrollable. There's where you need to get help. Just not the one question I just gone through, where you need to get help. There's one of the a signal for you to get help. And also other signal, just to answer the question that I just gone through. But you don't feel that who you are anymore. You don't feel that you are farting, for example, you know you are farting so far, you know, but suddenly you don't feel who you are. That is the time that you should know. Okay, so to answer that question, the percentage question and so on. So try to assess the situation. Don't take the question literally, thinking that you know your supervisor is trying to like pick your issues and so on. I think most supervisors will be understanding. I think even USM is trying to adjust to the situation. For example, you cannot get the data and so on. UKM, we got that issue as well. Many of my students are still struggling, cannot get the clients to get data to do their intervention, experimental studies and so on. So we are discussing whether it can change or not. how far you can compromise. Is what I say. Can you wait or you cannot wait? Whether you want to graduate on time, then life is not always perfect. Knows about that. Okay, you want to graduate on time, you have to sacrifice. Okay, then you change your research method, way of getting data and a topic and so on by discussing with your supervisor. I think they will understand it. Okay, if you don't want to sacrifice, I want to do this. This is what I have been wanting to do from when I was young. I don't want to change my topic. Then you have to wait. Okay, wait the pandemic to get over, or at least to get a bit permissible for you to conduct what you want to conduct your study. So try to arrange and analyze your thoughts with someone that that you can talk to, or with some professionals. Then, well, they ada jalan dia lah. There will be way for us to go up. Many times it's because we get so stressful, we can't see. We think that no way, or we are so please.
To add to what Mr. Gan mentioned just now,
Please.
if you have the passion, you have the perseverance, and now with the COVID-19 situation, you have to wait. Take a step back. If you have to defer one semester, defer 1 year, do something else. Because even if you take one semester off, the research will still be there. The lab will still be there. You can continue on. So instead of getting the frustration, being angry, and you can't continue with what you really, really want to do, take a step back.
Yeah, that remind me my experience while I was picking up my language skill in Japan. What I did is, of course, I cannot see the clients, but mostly the clients speak in Japanese. During my time, there's very few international students I can work with. What I did is I went to do volunteer work. I went to hospital doing volunteer work while I can pick up my language skills, to make my language more the oral, colloquial language, Japanese language, I can pick it up. In the same time, also can get in touch with the clients, maybe not in the clinical, doing the clinical psychology work, This is why I try to compromise and then think how long you can give yourself that grace period, to delay or not to delay. And while you are delaying this period of time, waiting the pandemic to get over, which is not controllable, what you can do to fill it up. Okay, there should be something there. Your personal agenda can come in, for example, the things that you cannot do for so long, you can do it now. It could be one of the way to make you feel fulfilled as well.
I think we move on to the next question as we are running out of time. Thank you, Doctor, for the insight and the experience shared. So from Mira J to Dr. Gesh, what is your opinion and suggestion of coping mechanism for a PhD student who also diagnosed with bipolar disorder, when every day is a challenge with erratic mood, even with medication?
Okay, thank you for that quite specific question. I think Mr. Gan can also answer this because his area is clinical psychology. My area is more on industrial and occupational psychology. That's my first master's. So what I can talk about is from the perspective of work-life balance. In this case, the study life because you have to go to the office, meaning the lab or the school when you engage. When you come with bipolar, it is, of course, you have to take your medication without a doubt. It will make you easier. Sometimes, well, it depends on the person, whether you're going to get more irritated, whether you're going to feel very lethargic and having no motivation to work. So very much depends on what type of coping mechanism works for you. I find that it is helpful for people having some forms of mental distress. This does not mean that you cannot perform. You can perform. So the first thing is to identify what you can and cannot do. With bipolar, it will be helpful if you have someone with you to give you the emotional support so that you can detect, okay, wait a minute, you're going off tangent now. You have to go back to the center in order for you to move forward. So it will be helpful in the morning, if you have someone with you, list down what you can possibly achieve for that day. Okay, so instead of being in a situation of your mood is regulating you, is shaping you for the rest of the day, always have with you. Doesn't have to be big, it just can be a small notebook that someone can be with you to be like a checklist. With this person, okay, what can you reasonably do for this day? Literature review, probably 5 pages. So this person with you, at the end of the day, can come back and discuss. Did you achieve this? If that's not possible, then you need a good supervisor. Explain to the supervisor, this is your condition. Okay, the supervisor should be aware. Do not hide it because that is only self-sabotaging behavior. Be aware, both parties, supervisor as well as a student, perhaps even in university. Like USM, we have our own psychiatry department. So you do need time away from the work to go and meet the practicing psychologists or clinical psychologists or even psychiatrists. Okay, so you can have that daily notebook checklist. So if you think with your condition, you're feeling calm now, but you don't know how it's going to be like in the afternoon. So what can you reasonably do? So instead of having a Gantt chart for the entire time of study, break it down to more manageable units. A day, a week, and go through together with someone who you think can help you go through it. Okay? Uh, of course, there will be a lot of work for the supervisor or the clinician, but clinicians mostly are there to help you help yourself. Okay? So some of the work must be from you. What can you reasonably do? You must make your supervisor aware of this. If necessary, in USM, all students are allowed up to 5 supervisors. Okay? So you will have a panel of supervisors to help you. Don't do it alone. It will make your symptoms worse. So yes, I'm thankful for you to share this, your willingness to share your issues, your problems, in order to help other people. That's a good way. Because bipolar people, okay, you're not alone. Other students are also facing the same situation. And I have found that using this guideline, okay, morning, go through it, but it's reasonable. At the end of the day, is it achieved? Can we adjust? It does help, but not for everyone. Okay, if you are on the higher end of emotionality, you might have to use other ways. Take frequent breaks. It very much also depends on your personality. Yeah. If you're an introvert, you can focus longer in your education. If you're an extrovert, you focus shorter duration. Introvert can focus up to 1 hour at a time in the studies. If you're highly extrovert, after 40 minutes, your brain cannot absorb anymore. You're already agitated. You want to do other things. Knowing that will help you adjust the time of your studies. So you can take a break every 10 minutes, top of the hour. Okay, for introverts, sometimes you can go on to 2 hours and then before you take a break, 10 minutes. Again, it's highly subjective. But if you're an extrovert, if you're very moody, you need to take frequent breaks. So you're not agitated with what you study. What actually does help is look at things which are green and far, because it will fix back your retina and prepare you. It will calm you down. It's a different stimulation. If you're sitting as an extrovert, you sit at a table, hours on end, highly stressful. Introvert is okay. So you gotta move, get up, deep breathing exercises. Breathing exercises also help for bipolar because they are delving agitation. So if you learn how to breathe deeply, that will help. But the clinical psychologist would be able to help you better lah. Because although I did psychology when I was a peer counselor in university, I'm now concentrating more on criminology. So perhaps I think Mr. Gan will be a better position to talk about this.
And another friend asked, how about ambivert, doctor?
Sorry?
How about ambivert? Someone extrovert and introvert. Ambivert.
Introvert. Yeah. So introvert people can spend more time.
Ambivert.
Can you type it out because it doesn't come down.
ambivert. Ambivert.
Ambivert.
In between
I think
introvert and extrovert, that kind of meaning.
Introvert and extrovert.
So ambivert can be
Ambivalent.
between.
Oh, I'm not sure. Ambivert.
Is it ambivert that you mean you are in between introvert or an extrovert?
Yes.
Or is it ambivalent or
Ambivalent. Okay.
is it ambivert? Ambivert are the words. You are introvert, extrovert, then you are ambivert, you are in between.
In the middle. So ambivalent are people who are 50% of the time extrovert, 50% of the time introvert.
Yes.
Depends on circumstances and situations. He or she may react or use the strategy for an extrovert, introvert, depending on circumstances. Again, the same thing applies. So some people find it wonderful doing research in purpose for literature review. They're so in tune into the research area, they really want to do it. They can spend hours. Okay, tahu-tahu dah malam. Because so into the area. So that at that time, they're introvert. For some people, let's say for example, the same person lah, let's say person A, very good in doing literature review. When it comes to research methodology chapter, becomes extrovert.
I see.
Because this person does not like, finding out the statistical analysis, what needs to be done, the procedures is possible. So it's important for you to identify at which stage of your research, literature review ke, discussion ke, and being an ambivalent person, okay? Where do you stand with that chapter? Okay, so
I'm not sure what the Shafa, you mean what you want to know about this ambivert? Whether for me, I don't think it's a big issue ambivert because you got two qualities there, introvert and extrovert. I will see positive. Yeah, you are having this balance between the both. My PhD study actually on this, we call it androgyny, or the NNN. It's a middle kind. Androgyny is something that you have both the quality of masculine and feminine, masculinity and femininity. Nothing to do with the sexual orientation, another issue. Not talking about the bisexual and so on, but it's more the quality you have. So having this doesn't mean that girl, you need to be very feminine, all the while very sweet and cute, and man, you should be strong and cannot cry, things like that. But you have the balance of both. I think is quite good. I think it's quite important nowadays during this COVID. Most of us need to be a bit like in the middle. You tend to do that. I cannot cook, right? Now you have to cook on your own. Otherwise, you cannot survive. No matter how you are, how manly you are. You think for girl, I cannot survive. Someone had to come accompany me when I was driving. No, cannot. MCO say you can only drive alone. You have to be independent. Am I right? So these are the well, I would say it's a balance. To add on that, I think PPUSM, you got very strong psychological services there. The Mentari service. There are a few very important clinical psychologists in PPUSM. My students, also my colleagues there. Professor Aziza, Dr. Faiz, Dr. Faiza just get hurt, and one, your clinical psychologist, and many trainees there. So please utilize that. Maybe, I think some of them maybe are now in the forum as well. Maybe can share the link, the mentally services in PPUSM and so on. To answer the bipolar question just now, it's quite uncomfortable. You feel the swing of mood, like a roller coaster, up, down like that. Even with medication, it's quite common. So when that happens, I will advise you to combine your medication also with psychotherapy treatment, because they are still some stressor, I believe, that trigger your emotional instability. I believe it's within the control. You don't need the medication, but you feel a bit like disturbed by that, So to make you be more mindful about your condition, where you get a bit high, where you get a bit low, So by talking to a professional, even you don't feel I want to talk to, go to, the psychiatry or clinical psychology service, try to get the friends that you have that you think you can share with. So share out the one you can trust with, that will help you a lot. And monitor your condition as well, especially when those bipolar, when you're high, we tend to overlook it. You might not be aware about that. then you might make some decision which later then you regret about that and then cause you in depression pula kan. So so make sure you get someone to monitor you. Hey, please tell me if you saw me like, if you see me like getting a bit like odd and then get a bit high, you know. Last time I got one bipolar client, so when high, you know what she does? Adult clients, she went and buy houses. They ended up with the loan, and then after they found out that COVID now cannot rent out, masalah pula, get depressed pula. You go and buy houses, rich lah, you go and buy houses, get the loan and so on. So be that. When you're low, also be careful because you will have this suicidal thoughts, you feel meaningless and things like that. Okay, so no, be more mindful about your condition, and then get someone to monitor for you together. Don't be alone.
Yeah.
I believe you got buddy system kan in your program. Buddy system will be helpful. Yeah.
Next from Alisa Kamarudin. If our friends show symptoms of depression or anxiety, should we advise them to immediately seek treatment or ask them to rest, find inner peace before seeing any professional? What do you say? Maybe Mr. Gan first?
Well, you say, well, if you are confident and comfortable going to all these mental health services, like I mentioned just now, PPUSN, you got mentally, psychiatry department, clinical psychology service, and even I believe you got counseling service there. If the symptoms are not that severe, maybe you want to start to see counselor first. And I say in Malaysia, we got advantage because of religion. Okay, we all got, mostly I believe, some Malaysians got this religious belief, which are quite different from Japan. One of the difficulty I work in Japan, with Japanese especially, because their religious faith is not so strong. So they mainly rely on their culture, for their mental support and things like that. So sometimes can be quite different, because the religion gives you a lot of values, a lot of guidance. Well, moral guidance. Sometimes you can say it's something very stressful. That's another issue. You have to see if you feel so stressed because of this too rigid religious things and things like that. Of course, you have to find a balance. Maybe you want to go out a bit and talk to the non-religious punya support. Otherwise, religion, remember your prayer, our God that we believe in. I think it can be very direct because that all these religion values and the resilience in religion, I think imparted within us since we were young. The forces from cultural and religious support. Try to get it first, get reminded, recall what are the teaching that we were told so far. We have been told so far. Otherwise, if still cannot, then any friends that you can get help from. Okay, that depends on whether you got the friend that you can trust with, and also the situation that where you are in now. Let's say if you are alone now, maybe you don't have many friends and so on. Maybe you can make a call and so on. But even that is not enough. Then you really need to think about to get help from the professionals in hospital and also in these NGOs as well. Okay, so I will advise that. So check your friend's condition and then see whether you can give it or not. Sometimes the problems can be quite overwhelming, too heavy for you to handle. So don't force yourself, don't feel that you're obliged, to handle. Let's say your friends got suicidal ideation, even the suicidal attempt, for example, self-harm behavior like what Dr. Gashina shared just now. If you feel too much, don't take it alone and work it together with other friends and try to get help. If your friend doesn't want to go to seek this professional help, maybe you can go and ask the advice from all these professional helps. That would be another way as well, indirectly.
Okay. On behalf of our friend.
Yeah, on behalf of a friend, but with their consent, or maybe without their consent, then you just don't want to say their name. Sometimes they just want to know, they just want their name to be known by others and so on. So be careful about that as well. Otherwise, they get a bit like not feeling happy. Can reveal his name, like my friend, and now he's where, what is his name, which major, and so on. Maybe you don't want to go to that details unless you get a consent from them. And now you got many like online tele-counseling, things like that. You can utilize it as well. Sometimes the distance can be helpful as well. to meet the counselor face to face can be quite stressful. Now I see something positive, even though in my practice now it seems like a issue lah to do all this online thing kan. But now we realize there are some advantage as well. You can get help from someone far away, professionals in Kuala Lumpur, and then online. When you feel like you don't feel happy, you just say bye-bye. You just close the laptop and go like that. Compared to
blessing in disguise.
yeah, face to face, it feels a bit, especially depressed person, they feel a bit like difficult to say how to say no. You know, when you're depressed, they feel no when you meet face to face. So utilize all these seems disadvantage situation. It can be something advantage there. I believe that it's something. It was always advantage to be like in the disadvantage situation. There are pros and cons in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gan. Let's move forward.
Fatin, I'd just like to add.
Okay.
Right. Having said that, if your friends or colleagues, don't force them. Okay. If you already have the symptoms, your friends see them. Your friends see that you have the symptoms. It is not their burden to help you through it. If they want to help you, yeah, go ahead. But you cannot force them and say that you're not a good friend because you're not helping me. You have to understand that when it talks about like depression, anxiety, whatever, bipolar, schizo, your colleagues, unless they're in clinical psychology or psychiatry, are not experts. Okay, so even though your friends see you look like you are depressed, is it? So one of the ways that we can go for this is to use the simple psychometrics available. Yeah, one of them is BDI. You have BEI, back depression inventory, back anxiety inventory. It comes in various languages, including Bahasa. You can find it online. Very simple to see. You can use it as a checklist to find out whether you have the symptoms. But even though, let's say you think all the symptoms are there, this does not confirm. You still have got to go to the professional to get a better, for that professional to really see whether or not can be diagnosed as someone who is depressed or having anxiety or whatever have you. So these two tools are quite powerful. BDI, BAI, back depression inventory, back anxiety inventory. You do not need to be a professional to go through, but it will help you to better understand. You have to bring the results of those tests to see a professional. Your friends are also students, they're studying. Not all of them have a psychological background, so they might think that you're facing depression or anxiety, padahal tak ada pun. Because you're not the person who's experiencing the problems. So, as a way to see whether or not you have a problem, you can explore. Go online, see the test, find out, I think I have the symptoms lah. Okay. If you do not know how to go about it, ask your friends, ask your supervisors. Okay. Seeking help for the stress that you're feeling is not a sign of you being a coward, of you being poorly, of you being problematic. It's actually a sign of strength. So you have to change the perception. Seeking help is actually a sign of strength. You know there are limitations, you need someone to help you overcome it. The role of clinical psychologists, of health professionals kiranya, is not to help you solve your problem. Okay? That's a myth. That's a completely wrong way of looking at it. Their role is to help you resolve your problem. Sometimes because you're so into the stressful situation, you can't see your way out. So the health professionals help you to see what you can do in your situation. It goes for any mental distress that you're facing right now. Okay, there are ways out, but you're so close into it. Perhaps it's because you have lack of knowledge, you have no experience, there's no support system surrounding you, and you need that help. Go for it.
Thank you, Doctor. As we are running out of time, we need to select, and I think 2 more questions. The first one is how do I know when should I get help? Mr. Gan, please.
Oh, this one, I think I've touched on that just now. When you feel that, of course, symptoms there. Usually we say when you feel that you are not who you are, that kind of feeling. Of course, the symptoms would be like they affect your functions, your behavioral function, cognitive function, emotionally. You get a bit like more reactive to all these negative emotion. That would be a sign that you should get help. So where to get help, that would be your choice, from your friends and from your family and so on. That should be the indicator. Functioning, especially when you talk about the postgraduates, you don't think you can cope with your life. Function also, of course, you got level, Maybe you cannot write your thesis, okay? That I would say quite high end because it needs a lot of but to the extent that it affect your daily functioning. You don't even feel like want to cook, want to clean yourself, want to take a bath and so on, don't even want to step out from the home and buy things. That would be quite alarming. So be aware about that. And also as a friend as well, please check with your friend, please check your condition on your friends, and if they get that symptoms, that should be something that you need to do. That I would say, yeah. Functioning, and then the feeling, sometimes feeling can urge there as well, yeah. The feeling of yourself.
Yeah,
You don't feel something, something right.
It's highly subjective. Some people a little bit of stress, tahan, and really need help. Some people, they will accumulate a lot of stress, finally seeking help. But again, of course, it depends on the person, how much stress you can actually live with, how much you cannot live with. If your normal day-to-day functioning cannot be done anymore, you absolutely need to get help. Okay? Of course, it's subjective experiences. If, for example, when it comes to life, whereby your daily life activities, as Mr. Gan was saying just now, you can't be with the people that you normally are. You feel mood changes, you're no longer smiling, you're always memasam muka. Sleep, as Mr. Gan was saying, sleep too long, sleep too short. You feel pins and needles in your body. You feel here is very strained, like your kaku. Okay, your badan is so crass. Okay, even your sleep is uncomfortable. Seek help. Highly subjective.
Yeah. I guess knowing ourselves is the most important thing to know when we should get help, right? So yeah, we've come to the last question. I'm sorry we cannot ask everything. From Faiza Hamdan, what are the suitable advice or coping strategy to a person who has imposter syndrome and inferiority complex? Doctor, Yashina, please.
Now, for that particular situation, it's a complex answer. It's not straightforward. Okay, because we have to look into the underlying reasons of how did that imposter syndrome, for example, and inferiority complex, for example, develop. We have to understand the history. So we're talking about a complete diagnostic review of this person. Because we need to identify what triggered, what sustained, what maintained that behavior. Okay, so the reactions, the psychosocial reactions. When we talk about psychology, it's like it's a triangle, looking at behavior, we're looking at cognitive, we're looking at affect. So when we address these, okay, imposter syndrome, whatever it is, take into account these three. You need to get a proper assessment from a clinician. So when it deals with coping, has to take into consideration these three things. So the answer is not straightforward. It very much depends on the personality of this person, the situational context this person is, the stage of study, okay, what can be controlled, what cannot be controlled, the external stimulus surrounding this person. When we talk about imposter syndrome, again, it's not a straightforward issue. What type of imposter are you looking at? Is it a matter of gender? Is it a matter of position? Is it a matter of status? Is it because of role model? This person is a celebrity, therefore you want to be like that celebrity, for example. So there are many nuances that you got to look into. When you talk about inferiority complex, how did it develop? What was the trigger that led this person to feel inferior? Okay, so it's not a straightforward. How to cope with this situation? Again, it will be very diverse. As I mentioned just now, there's at least 34 ways to cope. Not all 34 will be applied. Perhaps 2 action-based, perhaps 3 emotion-based. Again, this personal issue, please seek for the assessment, proper assessment being done by a clinician, and that clinician will be able to refer you to the correct person to help you cope. Okay, so I hope that helps. Please find more information from a proper practicing, because I don't have a license to practice. Mr. Gandas, I don't.
Well, no, as Dr. Ishina says, it's very complex when you talk about this imposter syndrome and inferiority complex, because it involves the personality aspect of a person. I'm not sure whether you're talking about siapa nama Faiza, okay, about yourself, or you're talking about how you deal with a person with this kind of qualities. This can be 2 aspects that we can look into. If you're talking about you yourself, I would say, wow, that means you're quite aware about you have this kind of characteristics in you. There could be something that very interesting to look into, as a quality. I wouldn't say whether it's a good or bad, I believe that this inferiority complex and with all these qualities got developed, there are some reason behind that. And you got some function to serve. Okay, whether good or not, there will be another issue, whether it helps you or not, or you're trying to make yourself feeling better, or you're trying to use it as we call it defenses from something by being in that way. Say we are talking about yourself. So if you want to reflect on that, maybe you can, if you are able to, if you are aware about that, it seems like if you are talking about yourself, it seems like you are aware about these characteristics in you, then you can further, talk to someone, the professionals, to further look into this and how you want to do with that, and don't make it develop to the extent that in a negative direction. Well, inferior complex, for example, is too bad, then you become lacking of, okay, but this inferior complex can help us to humble sometimes, so you won't be that that proud and too confident about yourself. How you utilize it is something more positive. Okay, so it depends. The imposter as well. Okay, you want to pretend about some other people, but to the extent that you don't know who you are, that would be an issue. But if you use it to something creative, for example, you can think about other people, and then from there you use it as a source of your creativity. See whether you can channel to that part. If you are talking about how to deal with all these type of your friends and so on with these kind of characteristics, then I would say, just I want to add on something with your friends. Why Dr. Gashina share about it's very important for us to not to force our friends to go and seek help. It's one of the reason is also because if you force, sometimes lose that connection. They feel that they are being pushed, even though they don't feel they want to go and see some professionals first. So don't do that. That's why we got the concept of doing and being. Not necessarily we have to do something at all time. Sometimes you can just be with them. If it's not the timing to do something yet, just be with them, sit together with them, listen to them. That will do. Okay. When we feel that they are more comfortable with us, they can listen more to us, more ready psychologically to seek help. Well, then we can step by step, start doing something, and then advise them. Well, do you think you want to go and see someone to get help and so on? Doing in steps, that will be much more give rooms to the individual for them to decide. But before that, to be with them, that will be good as well. Same as well for this key complex person and your friends. Be with them, listen to them, and see how you can help. Okay, to give them some confidence, look into the fears. Maybe they are having some fears. That's why they get a bit inferior feeling or inferiority in them. It can be the manifestation of the stress that they are feeling as well, so they feel less and less confident during this pandemic. Try to listen to them and let's see how it goes. That will be one of the way in getting along with your friends with these characteristics. Yeah. In general, we say the particular one, as Dr. Kashina shared, you have to go to do thorough assessment and talk to the professional.
Acknowledging, I just like to add, like Mr. Dan was mentioned just now, knowing and acknowledging that you have underlying issues that need to be addressed is already one step forward.
Yes.
You're not denying that you have a problem. You recognize that you have a problem and you're seeking help to overcome that problem. You're moving forward already. That's a great big step. Okay, acknowledge that in yourself. Now, all you have to do is maintain the momentum to move forward. Some people's stress when they study is a lot worse. Okay, they are differently able. They're blind. They're deaf. Multiple sclerosis. Now, I have a colleague of mine. Yeah, he just went through his PhD defense for his second PhD.
I see.
Multiple sclerosis. Right? I don't think any of our audience today, right now, are that level yet. He has 3 masters and he's on his second PhD. So again, when you talk about stress in the studies, is very subjective. He acknowledges he has definitely multiple sclerosis. He's got to go to hospital almost on a monthly basis seeking help, and there's also some underlying comorbidities that he has. Okay, it does not stop him from doing the studies. Okay, and the study area that he focuses on are underprivileged groups, the B40s, people with problems in life, financial problems, drug problems. That is his focus group. And he has multiple sclerosis. Okay, so how does he develop that resistance? Okay, he acknowledging that he has these difficulties does not stop him. He experiences stress like everyone else, even more so, because mobility is a big issue for him. Okay, he still manages to go to childcare to meet homeless people in his free time for doing the community engagement. Yeah, he has inferiority complex, no doubt about it. Often he will contact me. Okay, we would talk things through. Okay, so when it comes to self-defeating behaviors, I put a stop to it. Okay, interject that to make him see that, wait, hold on, you're moving backwards now. You did so well, let's move forward. Okay, he accepts that and we move forward together. Okay, so you need a good support system. So one of the good things is that once you acknowledge you have a problem, you're ready to move a step forward.
So I guess acknowledging and then seeking help is something that need to be done for those who want a good mental health status. Yes. So I think sadly we have come to the end of today's webinar. To recap everything, stress is inevitable and it is natural to experience in our lives. But we hope with the help from the surrounding and also from our talk today, we can go through this phase with strength and persistence so that, one fine day we can say, yeah, we did it. We are PhD holder, master holder. And we also would like to inform, especially the students from USM, if you didn't know about this, HUSM has services, which is Mentari, to help students and staff who need help in screening their mental health status and also provide consultation services. So it is free and you can just walk in to the Mentari. So if you think you are in need of help, please feel free to do so. Okay.
Oh yeah, Fatih, I'd like to add to that. Yeah, the advantage if you're having some stress problems or perhaps developing forms of developmental or mental distress, this is the time to seek help. Well, it's free.
Yes. Well,
Because the Malaysian government says, as long as you're a student, okay, any of these mental health requirements that you need to go through, the meaning from the detection, diagnosis, the treatment is free.
Yes.
Take advantage of that. Once you graduate and go into work life, it's no longer free.
Yes, and
It can go up to probably 500 ringgit per session.
yes.
So take advantage of this.
Yeah, we hope the postgraduate student who hear this, who tune into this, will take the advantage of this info after this and get better and be more productive, inshallah. So thank you so much, Dr. Gashina and also Mr. Gan, for spending your weekend with us around 2 hours. I know it's your family time during weekend, so thank you very much for having us today. And may all the knowledge that you share, all the experience that you let us know becomes the motivation for all the postgraduate students to finish our studies smoothly, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Inshallah.
Thank
Okay.
you very much and stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.
Yeah.
Stay strong. Say that
Yes,
again.
definitely. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, bye bye. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. So thank you everyone for tuning in until now. See you soon. Bye.